What mute? Okay. Subbu is based at Bangalore?
No, Mr. Yadav, I'm based in Chennai. I'm based in
Chennai, my favorite place. You know, when I started Genius,
how it makes you favorite place? I need to know that.
There are two reasons, you know. The last company where I work, we had a factory in Chennai, and I used to go every month, and I got fascinated with Chennai. So when I started Genius,
thank you. Thank you for all my fellow participants to having joined us here. We have good attendance today, and this is one of our favorite subjects. I think for all the entrepreneurs, this is one of the favorite subjects, as well as I would say one of the most difficult or trading path for all entrepreneurs today, and I think all the acquisition team members as well. And interestingly, it's been a tough time for us, and interestingly, it's also one of the path-breaking times in the staffing industry. We've just seen the recent report from ISF, which talks about a growth of 3.6% in overall staffing business, and it's just the time for all of us to get ready for the new client acquisition spree and the new models of acquisition. So I think we'll spend some time trying to look at existing strategies, how they have changed and evolved, what could be the challenges that are which are purely brought because of the pandemic, and we could also touch upon certain new modes of or new DNA of business development and client acquisition strategy, and we'll try and get the insight of all the veterans that we have as panelists today. We have amongst us probably in the Staffing Federation, very rich experience with money, Mr. Yadav and Mr. Somnath. So without wasting a lot more time, I will jump to my first question and would move that question to Mr. Yadav. Yadavji, one of the challenges that I've been hearing and we have been noticing during the pandemic is that a lot of our clients want to come back and seek more funding options from us. The strategy has been it's obviously cash starved, the economy, the organizations, us, everybody has the let's say the deposits, or let's say the cash flow definitely is tight. So it is natural for customers to ask funding. How does one look at client acquisition in today's market when these requests come in, and what are the things that we must be also cognizant about? Over to you, Yadavji.
Yeah, so good afternoon, Pramod, Subbu, Somnath, all the co-panelists and all the members who are participating today. And it's a privilege to be once again with all of you. Let us see the genesis of this funding. See, when about 20 years back, when we started this business, in those days, we used to make the payment to the associates only, and those days, the transfer of money was not there. We used to get the check. So when we used to get the check, only when the check will encash and the fund will be sowing into the bank, then only we used to do the reimbursement, or we used to give the money to our associates, And those days, the service charges used to be anything between 15% to 20%. So from there, 20 years, and now the situation is funding now. So funding has become very, very prevalent. It varies company to company, and some company it is 50-50, somewhere 60-40, somewhere 70-30. But no company can, none of our members can claim that either it is 100% complete funding, or non-funding is not there. There is a mix of funding. Everybody has to do that. Now, the funding requirement is more, so for funding, I think we need to classify the clients again, So there are multinational clients, highly liquid, they are good, they are financially very strong. There could be a large Indian company, they also could be financially very sound and a good company to work for. There could be company which is large in their nature, but financially strained. So there are the three types of company in the larger, But if you look again, the medium and the smaller company, which is very small or medium, not very financially sound, financially strained company. So the dealing with all these different kind of company has to be different. And also it depends upon the agency or the service provider, what is the situation in their company. Suppose the service provider is strong, is having the enough fund, or has got a bank backup, or financial backup, has got equity backup. So these all makes to take a decision ultimately. Our journey as a genius was from very small to whatever we are here today. So in the different stage, in a different way, I have taken decision in a different way. So, but in my opinion, my advice would be, first of all, why does the funding they want? Because every company wants to use your working capital to make his own working capital. So it's like working on somebody else's working capital on my working capital, and this is more prevalent in America. Most of the American company and European company, you will find they will begin with 60 or 90 days credit. They don't talk less than 90 days credit. So basically, they use the others' working capital to make their own working capital. That is the genesis of all the American company. But a good thing is that most of the American and European country, they are good in the payment. So if they speak about 90 days, they will give you, except unless there is a problem, either the compliance issues or some issues are there. So while dealing with such company, if it is financially sound and you have also the fund, and if the margin is good, then obviously one has to give the funding. But if the margin is thin, then obviously you can't give. If you try to give, then you get sunk. So one has to understand that where do I strike the balance? So while striking the balance, you need to see that how much is the margin, whether the company is financially sound. Can I afford it 30 days, 15 days, 10 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days? Based on that, you have to take a decision. The first thing is that when you sit on the negotiation table, you need to avoid the funding, because as much you avoid, you protect your working capital, and that working capital is available for the next client, or the next business which you have within you. So first thing is to avoid. If you cannot avoid it, then either you increase the margin or you reduce the credit period. That is the second choice you have. Third choice you have that you say, okay, fine. You bring down. That means bring down or split the components. Let's say that okay, you pay me compliance amount you pay, like PF and ESI payment you pay, GST payment you pay, maybe salary I will say. Or you say, okay, I will pay compliance and other amount I'll pay you and you pay the salary. I mean, this is how on the negotiation table one has to do. But you cannot avoid 100% if you want to be in the business, because that is the norm in the industry at the moment. And the client will look for. So these are the few tips which the way we proceed. But one has to be very careful. Never ever fund a financially strained company, whether it is a large, small, median. If you do so, you will also be strained and your company will be in trouble. So that's the catchword. Never ever finance the financially strained company. No matter whatever margin, they might tell you, no, I'll give you a good margin. I have walked away, I have walked away if I have got such business, and we go through the balance sheet and we check through the ROC and we check through the market report. Particularly where the stake is higher, and if I find that it is a financially strained, no, we don't go for that. We let the business go. We'll rather require other client and concentrate on other, because if you work with a financially strained company, it is not only blocking your working capital, but blocking the further opportunity and blocking your time to go into legal issues and problem, which we don't have time right now. We should spend our time positively in developing a business and maintaining a business rather than going for a legal battle. So there are the few tips or suggestions I have which could be useful.
Interesting points, Yadavji. I think two important points is a good takeaway for me. One's to be able to come back and sit on the negotiation table and look at how you can get the client to look at paying a portion of the fee, either it could be Provident Fund, ESI, statutory compliances, or the GST portion, or both, or be able to do some kind of deferment. So it's not the entire block one needs to look at, but can split it into multiple ways, and clients are open. And you're saying from experience. The second interesting point is how many of us actually go into the balance sheets and the ROC when we are wanting to acquire customers, and that's very interesting point. Do we do the KYC post business development team and client acquisition, having got the deal on the table? Do we actually get down at that stage or before, or whatever? In either case, do we have that? And I think that's an interesting point. Very interesting, Yadavji. My next question is to Mani. Mani, I think you've been on the client side, the other side of the table, as they call it, and now, of course, on this side of the table. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Pramod.
You must have been, when you're on the other side of the table, you have probably come back and wanted to work with larger brands and larger organizations. Now you're on this side of the table. Why don't you tell us how would be your situation? And I think post-pandemic, the clients obviously have more and more questions about the viability of the organizations that they would deal with. And the GST compliance has automatically brought in a lot of wanting to work with more organized players. What would be the strategy that an MSME or a SME company should take to be able to defer, or at least come back and position themselves when clients wants to work for organizations which are bigger or multiple branches, and how do we look at it?
Sure. Thanks, Pramod. I think and good to all the participants and all our co-panelists out here. A warm welcome from Mani here. Pramod, this is pretty close to my heart because as an organization, we were born, we were toddlers when pandemic happened. We were just 1 year old. So someone who's just born and is a toddler and gets into this phase, this was a typical question we faced because clients became very conservative in their approach to partnership. And when I say client, I qualify the way Mr. Yadav said, the right set of clients, not anybody and everybody, the right set of clients who you feel we should do business with. So the typical question was, you not have the size, you don't have the scale, you don't have the balance sheet. And there were issues which were coming up that I'm sure a lot of us face, the force majeure piece being in cause, which may entail some legal hassle, and how do we manage those? So what you tend to do is you tend to protect yourself, and you tend to go with established names during these times. And given the fact that business was shrinking and business was not expanding, so your opportunity for business also got limited during the pandemic piece. So you typically went to clients. And so what I realized in my own journey at that point, trying to be a vanilla player will not work. You're just going and saying, I'm another, what do you call, a flexi staffing company. And the entire discussion is around, I can hire for you, I can process for you. So what I realized is that compliance is a hygiene. If you go and say to any client that I'll do compliance in the right way, that is taken for granted. There's no more a differentiator which you could do, especially during pandemic. That's taken for granted. So what are the advice, what my own experience is, you need to understand a little more what are the pain point the customer may have. So a couple of examples, one of the pain points we figured out, and try and solve issues around the pain point. A pain point could be that they are looking at a very niche business. A lot of companies may say, just for an example, they may say, we are looking at, I was trying to talk with a client who was looking at the healthcare business, a very short, looking at some healthcare professionals, etc. And their problem was they needed a small numbers, but very niche kind of profiles. And there they wanted, they're okay to come with a player like us because they wanted a solution to their problem. And it was not the typical paying on the right time, doing compliance in the right way. And so that what is my realization is that you cannot be just a vanilla player. You have to add some value, understanding the pain point or the problem statement of the customer, which needs a deep engagement, perhaps talking to the right stakeholders, not at the board level or not at the corporate level, at the field level, where they really have the problem. So that was one of my key learning. Try and focus being a value-added player to the client, try and bring some solutioning, and they're willing to pay. Otherwise, if you go as a generic player, they always will go for the larger players, because during these pandemic times, they wanted to make sure we have the best people who can anchor for us. So that was one of my key learnings, Pramod. Do deep dive into your client, understand what are the pain points they have, and try and solve that pain point. And that helped us. You may not get big numbers, but what you will definitely get is an opportunity to, in what I always used to say is, you have a foot in the door with the client. Once you have a foot in the door, which could be a large player, established players, like for them would be not a number like 15, 20 may not matter, and they say it's a very niche. That's a foot in the door strategy, what someone should apply and try and solve that. And that's my suggestion and advice, especially in the pandemic. When business comes back to usual, I presume clients will be far more open to see smaller players, trying to give them larger mandates. But right now, I think be a value add, just have a foot in the door, stranger, and try and solve it. So that's my learning and experience in the last couple of years since pandemic, Pramod.
Sure, very nice. I think I love the statement. Foot in the door is very, very important. Once you get it, use your value addition. You must have some value addition. Use the foot in the door, and once you get there, then you have a room for you to play. Wonderful. I think nice thought, Mani. My next question is on interesting problem to have, which is boon in case we are able to overcome the same as well. Will reduce our cost for traveling, which is already all-time low for all of us. One of the largest costs that we had for all of us was the travel cost. The face-to-face, and how does one work through the face-to-face client acquisition strategy? We would do cold calls earlier and would just walk in, but now we have a face-to-face challenge. How do we overcome the same, the digital discipline on both sides, us as well as the customer? How do we overcome that? And maybe I'd like to ask Somna this question to understand what their strategy has been.
Yeah, thanks, Pramod. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining us here today. Hope you and your family members are safe, strong, and vaccinated. Thanks, Yadavji, Pramod, and Mani for setting the context right. So today's topic is of utmost important, as it is connected to our existence. So when there is no client means no business, and where do we exist then? So this reminds me of Mahatma Gandhi, who said customers are the purpose of our work. So we all know customer is God, and Bhagwan ke darshan aasani se thode milte hain. That too entire in this world, when the world is topsy-turvy under pandemic. So coming back to Pramod's question, that yes, for 5,000 years and more, we are habituated to face-to-face meetings, understanding each other over the cup of tea, coffee, and discussion. So suddenly under this pandemic, that has changed. And we have to move for this virtual communication mode, digital communication mode, and where definitely it's easy to establish uninterrupted communication in no time in the new normal. But when it compared to face-to-face meetings, we know that conversion ratio is quite less. So now for both the parties, actually, this is a new grammar we are learning. We are learning a grammar of digital communication and building habits of convincing and judging others digitally. So we are building a new habit. As John Dryden says, we first make our habits, then our habits make us. So mastery in digital world means learning grammar of digital etiquettes. These etiquettes are very simple. We all know this. But we don't always consciously implement that. There should be stress on presentability, nice background, attentiveness, proper network, and there's not a good background you are getting, you can go for a virtual background. So if we implement this properly, these small things properly, we feel that chances of closing the deal would be better, and we can surely propel towards a brighter future.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan Somnath. Very important for us to look at the backgrounds. Our backgrounds look nice thanks to ISF. And I love the statement, Bhagwan ke darshan to jaldi se nahi milte hain. So that's really true. So much true for client acquisition for sure. I love the humor that you bring on this. I'll move on to the next question, which is very, very interesting question. I think one of our toughest times is being, and everybody would accept it, IT recruitment, or for that matter, general staffing. Getting our own team members is one of the most toughest activities. I think we all know recruiters are very difficult to get right now, but it's not also easy to get the client acquisition team right. So how do you go about sourcing the business development, specifically in the today's times? What are the, and the competition is stiff. We have very deep competition from very large players, and niche players have come in. Yadavji, what is your strategy around it? You run a very large business development team. How do you constantly keep hiring the right talent on the same end?
Pramod, many a times we take decision in life or in a company based on the situations. So one of the situations when the first time the pandemic came, and we were like taken off guard. We didn't know what to do, And I think most of us, we made some or other mistakes, either losing a client or losing good people or optimizing the cost or optimizing the team, optimizing the locations, negotiation on the rent. So everybody did, It's not that I did. I think everybody did, So as a result, I think in the process of, because future was that time uncertain when the first lockdown was announced, and we were almost about 2.5 months we were locked, So we didn't know as to what to do. I think like many other companies, we also did the optimization of the team, and the team was reduced, Then the second wave came, and after the second wave, when the market has opened, it is like a fire. There is so much opportunity available in the market, and so much a big demand is there, whether it is IT, pharma, healthcare, or e-commerce, retail, manufacturing. Everywhere there is a big, and anybody and everybody wants people in hundreds and thousands, To catch up that, you require team, and we have more complex because we have 12 products compared to other company. We have 12 products. In order to sell the 12 products, we need to justify that. We need to have a large number of team. So the biggest difficulty is selling the product is more difficult is to getting your own people in the team, and building a team of business development is very difficult in my opinion, and that too in a short period when the demand is so much. So you can adopt various strategy which we are facing the challenge, but of course we are progressing every day to build the team. The people are available is scarce, particularly in business development team, IT team, IT recruiter. Any IT recruiter is having at least 4 to 5 offer in his hand, and even if he takes your offer, I think 80% chances that he will not join. So you are working with just 20%. And even if the 20% guy he joins, then after one day he will not go, or after 1 week he will not go. I think again within that 20%, 80% chances that he will go away. So you are left with just about 5% that the guy is going to be with you. The recruiter I'm talking about. And the business development team and home recruitment team, they all have become very difficult. So you have to strengthen your own recruitment team. Recruitment team, if you are working earlier with X number, I think you need to work with X plus Y into 2, something like that. You need to recruit your own recruitment team. Secondly, you need to strengthen your consultant. I mean, I'm sure everybody works with some outside consultant, and you need to strengthen the consultant. You need to have a good referral policy in the company, whereby your own people bring some people for you. So strong referral policy. then use the reference with the ex-employees which you have, because if you have a large number of ex-employee or medium number, whatever number you have with them, you can use that. You have to use the competition where your employees have gone and they have left. Or even we have understood that when you bring a person, so every day you recruit one or other persons, so when you recruit a person, you need to take that person reference from that company, because that company, if one person is living, likelihood is that he will have some friends, he will come, so there are some of the strategy one has to build, and with all these strategy, I think probably there will be a likelihood chance that we will come to the closure of building a good team. And particularly in our case, we want to build a large team. In order to build a large team, we use all these resources or all the avenues to ensure that our team is intact. So my suggestion would be that build your internal talent acquisition team. If you have X, you make X plus Y into 2 or 3, whatever you have. We make a good referral incentive and referral scheme within the company. Use ex-employees reference. Use the new incumbent reference immediately. Use your competitions where your employees are working. I'm sure everybody's employees working in the company. There are 5 suggestions I will have to build a team, and then probably, but they are not foolproof, and they are something genius specific. I'm sure everybody must be using something else. I'm using this strategy, but still I must tell you, I'm really struggling, Pramod. Really struggling, and I have been struggling from 15th June onward. I think we opened. Our office opened around 12 or 15 June. I don't remember the exact, but I think middle of June, all of us we opened after the second wave. From that date till now, real big struggle and challenge we are going through. But success is coming. Success is coming with a slow pace, and I can visualize that this slow pace will close in some day. It can close in September, it can close in October, it can close in November. But I'm sure it will close, and I think same journey all the people will have, in my opinion. Everybody will face same. Maybe the road and path would be different, but I think everybody is passing through this challenge. So this is a few I would like to suggest.
True, the people who staff everybody are struggling with staffing issues as well. That's the irony of the situation, but that's where we are. I will move on to the next question. We have got a lot of questions to cover and points that we had thought with limited time, but I still request, in case people have questions, please put it in the Q&A section, and we will try and answer as many possible during or at the end of the session. My next question is to Somnath. I think Yadav mentioned about sourcing challenges. Would you want to cover and touch upon the changing DNA of the new business development and lead generation team? With the changing times, what do you think should be the new DNA and how we should go about it?
Yeah. Thanks, Pramod. This is a very nice question. So, see, I'm coming to how we got businesses. Then I'm coming to this DNA and lead generation. So what trend we have seen before, that organizations planning to invest in new geographies or businesses, they always go to onboard new partners. But now this mentality has changed. They have become more cautious. And even if they are moving to new geographies or in expansion mode, that rigor to get new partners is not there. Rather, they are continuing with their old partners. So this new BD, the person who would be, joining your organization, has to do a lot of research on the client. Definitely should be technically savvy, should be digitally, he should be etiquette properly, he should be aware of the grammar of digital communication. Those things are definitely very important. And should try to analyze and study the pain areas where actually the client is struggling. So it's, as Mani was telling, that just it can't be a, it can't be a vanilla format. Just a BD is going and telling that I am doing this, and this is my services. That might not help. So there should be a different approach towards the client. And see, I have seen, might be one of my veteran BD is interacting with a person, a 25, 26 years old guy of Generation Z, and might be they are not able to connect. Sometimes there's a, there is not only a difference of generation, there is a difference in technology. So they are not able to connect. They are not getting the common points. So sometimes we need a mix and match of both new, digitally, savvy, tech savvy, and of course the veterans who are there. And when I'm coming to this lead generation part, lead generation, Pramod, I feel that we have to be digitally, we have to be very strong. We have to do digital marketing properly. I can see you very active in LinkedIn, and I'm not that much active, might be, but see, that's the key. See, even if you're meeting a client, the next time that person is checking your reviews, Google reviews, and then deciding that I'm going to give this deal to him or not. So one lead generation point was definitely be this online marketing, which we need to bank on. And if we are really not equipped, then we should learn from an expert and would try to equip ourselves as soon as possible in this, because that's the key, I believe, in this new normal.
True, Somnath, thank you. I think this is a wonderful point, and I must add to this point, and almost related to what Somnath said, is we're also looking at the new generation. We're looking at people who can do multitasking with client acquisition. It's very difficult to come back and look at lead generation and always closure to be separate people, specifically for MSME organizations. Large organizations may be able to do that. So I think it's a very important tip for all the client acquisition team members to start looking at lead generation come closure kind of a strategy in the new digital world with research oriented skills that Somnath pointed out. Wonderful. I think that's nice. I think we move to the next question. I think, Mani, this is for you. We would get a lot of transfers earlier. You may not have seen that because you were on the other side giving us transfers at that point of time. But transfers are almost reducing. Slowdown probably is happening on transfer business, at least for the smaller organizations. That's what our feedback is. And hiring is the key point. So what is your thought on client acquisition problems related to, people who only want a transfer business and not hiring business, or people who are focused on hiring? I mean, this is between, and is it viable to do hiring? So some perspective on that.
Sure. I think, Pramod, as I have heard the other side, that when you're into staffing, it's a volume business. It's not a great value business in terms of margins, but it's in the volume. So numbers dictate. And if someone's trying to build an organization using in staffing, especially flexi staffing with the numbers, it will take ages. So conventionally, companies have scaled up using the rebadging approach. Obviously, I'm not talking companies of genius who are built from scratch, because they have been in the business for quite long, that built. That's how the conventional wisdom says that you target rebadging, and many companies also do, because every 3 years they look at moving into a new partner. So conventionally, many of the companies also have this rotational of partners, etc. Used to be. Now, having said that, while it's good for volume business and scaling up, but then what we need to realize is, in my own experience and as saying is, it's not a sustainable long-term of just using rebadging as an approach, even if you're building an organization. Because end of the day, while for a small MSME, that's the route, but unless you don't have your sourcing or your build approach where you're hiring and sourcing and building that, the client retention or stickiness will be on the lower side always, because client will always see you as another parking slot. that's conventional wisdom. So you may have to have a mix and match, especially for companies of our size who would like to build. They need some large numbers to come in, and then, but at the same time, you can't ignore the sourcing and the build approach. On the sourcing side, I think there are a lot of challenges you face, starting from the fact that, without naming a company or player, we know there is the portal-based dependency is very high. A job portal-based dependency is near to what you call a monopoly business today in India, and it's becoming a little unaffordable for small companies to kind of get that cost of acquisition, sourcing acquisition, getting that. So that's a big challenge for us, because that route is become costlier affair. Second comes, as Mr. Yadav rightly pointed out, when people, like large organizations' ability to attract and retain recruiters is you can imagine the scenario for us. Where do we attract? Because obviously they will also like to do. So it is becoming challenging threefold. The channels of sourcing, your portals are becoming costlier. Your ability to do field recruiters, which is there in the field, is become unviable because getting recruiters has become costlier affair. So it's become very, very difficult, in my assessment, for a startup or a MSME or a small companies to do business only through sourcing. So they'll have to rely very large on a mix of rebatch, and that's what I feel at this stage, especially in the pandemic scenario, where talent acquisition people have become costlier. The talent become they are not available in the market. First and foremost, costlier is secondary. They're not available. Everybody is sitting in a ratio of 1:4, 4 jobs and 1 guy. In that, MSMEs will be the last in preference to them, both in attraction or in compensation for that instance. So sourcing is going to be very difficult. So rebadging, I feel, is in a short-term game where we should focus. But without building your sourcing capability, I don't think you can ever be what you call a staffing organization of choice for any client. You need to have, and that has to have a lot of field game, which is your spread, your reach, your channel reach, your so that's how I'll try to put my perspective here, Pramod, and I'll pause to hear from
Right,
your
absolutely.
co-panelists.
We are running short of time, but I have a lot of questions in my hand. Let me move to the next question. How do you look at, Yadavji, this is for you. How do you look at and this is for changing times, we all have incentive schemes, but we see the paradigm shift here, and the acquisitions take a lot of time, and certain times post-acquisition penetration takes a lot of time now, probably because of hiring challenges and various other challenges. How do you see your incentive plans, or let's say reward mechanisms for your acquisition teams change during these times? You're on mute, Yadavji, sorry.
Sorry, if you can repeat, Pramod, I could not understand.
Yeah, this is to do with the incentive plan or the reward plans for our acquisition teams at this point of time during changing times. How do you see them changing, and specifically with acquisitions of customers, where customer acquisition itself or penetration itself takes time? How do you reward your people?
Okay, Pramod, I think to answer this question, again, it varies company to company. There are many companies who does not give incentive. They give plain salary to the people, to the business development people, and they work on the salary. There are company where the salary is low, the incentive is more. There are company where salary is high, incentive is low. Since we have a large number of products, we got almost about 12 products, so our incentive is quite, I would say, cumbersome, structured. But without incentive, in my opinion, it is like without putting any backup of arms and ammunitions and sending the salespeople in the market. So if you want to sell the salespeople, I think you need to put some dynamite behind them, to perform and bring a result to your company. So I think the incentive one can structure in various ways. I mean, the plain vanilla, if any company wants to do the incentive, is that you decide X amount of a target, and when someone achieves that X amount plus, let's say 10%, then next is 20%, and then plus 30%, and then next 40%, and then beyond the 40 or 50%, then you have certain amount or certain percentage of what they have achieved. This is very plain vanilla kind of situations are there. But where you have a product mix, if you have, let's say, 10, 12 or 13, 14 products or 5, 6 products you are marketing in the company, then you have classified those products into certain group, and once you classify in the group that product, then convert that product group into certain units, So now when you talk about units, you can say that building a prospects could be certain percentage of prospect could be a certain unit. Then converting that prospects into negotiations could be certain units you can allocate to that. Once you have converted that, then finally bringing a client could be certain unit. Now, so these are the 3 units, Then again, it is there whether you bring a large company, whether you bring a large client, you bring a medium client or a small client, you need to have a certain, but then classification of large, medium and small will vary company to company. This is another way of classifying certain units. Then again, you can classify in terms of revenue and margin. So if you bring a client of a certain annual revenue, you have incentive for that. If you bring a client of a certain margin, there could be a product where revenue and margin is equal. There are products like in staffing where revenue may be 100%, but the margin could be 2%, So it all varies, So with all the combination one has to do, but I think the best combination is that you take 5, 6 these points and convert into unit. And of that unit, what percentage of people achieves, 20%, 30%, 50%, 60% beyond what the target you have given, and then you allocate an incentive is much better combination, and that drives the people, because then he has 3, 4 things to look at, It's not only the revenue, neither the margin, not only the prospects, not only the closing deal, the quality of prospects. So these are all combined when you do. Then probably one brings on the table a better incentive structure, which motivates, which makes the person to lead and to go into the market and bring on your table a larger business. Yeah.
Thank you, Yadavji. I like the concept that you break down your tasks into units and try and come back and give a unit method and break the conventional method to volume of business. So very nice inputs, and I think good takeaway for a lot of us. Next question is to look at what sort of points that we specifically need to keep in mind while looking at client acquisition teams training. Somnath, this is for you, and specifically how organizations which are MSME and SME staffing organizations to look at that. We can't afford large training teams for it. So how do you go about it, Somnath?
Thanks, Pramod. So, as Yadavji already mentioned, that it is difficult to get BD first. It's difficult to get a business development person than a client. So it's more difficult to get a business development person. So let me club it with what strategy that organization follows. There are certain kind of models that an organization should follow to go for client acquisition. So modeling would be always in one of my top priorities when I'm communicating with the business development person. So when I'm talking about modeling, don't worry, I'm not talking about Manish Malhotra or Sabyasachi. So here, see, I'm a big fan of hunter-farmer model, where the hunter is at the front end and is dedicatedly working on connecting and acquiring new clients. And there comes the conviction, courage, confidence, and market knowledge. So there are a few things which you can about the organization, about your organization, about the principle, about your strategies, that download you can give to your business development person. But there are a few stuffs which he would be carrying. Either he would be growing with you over the years, or you'd be hiring the person from the market. Those stuff should be there. And that person is actually what he's doing. We have to be, again, very patient, and we have to show perseverance when we are working with a BD, because even when you are a new entrant and you're a startup, you don't have that great credibility, but that person is there in the market who is building this credibility for you. So you have to give that. I must say that you have to give him a net. That, boss, you try your best, and don't worry even if you fall. We are not worried about that, and the person should be undeterred about the rejections. In the face of rejections, he should be undeterred, because every arrow that hits bullseye is the result of 100 misses. So that's the thing. Is a success is a number game. So that sort of communication should be between the BD and the organization. That sort of training should be built on. Of course, this we can't avoid this digital communication, technology training and all that should always be there. Thanks.
Yeah, interesting point. I think let me move to the next question here. We've got very limited time. I think I want to leave some 5 minutes for Q&A. If people have Q&A, request people to put the Q&A in the Q&A box. It'll be easier for us to take care of that. One of the trends that we have seen, probably you can say post-pandemic, it's not interlinked, but we've seen a recent trend of MSP and MSA concept really come in. A lot of organizations want to work with MSP and MSA kind of concept. Yadav, what do you think about the same changing trends, and how do you think client acquisition teams should, at this point of time, reply back, and what should be their ways of looking at these deals, or for that matter, entrepreneurs?
I think, Pramod, as the industry matures, staffing industry is moving toward the maturing, and the penetration rate is increasing. Imagine, as we attended the AGM the other day, and we found that almost 39 crore people are supposed to come into the formal. The government will try to bring into the formal. So even out of that, we get few percentage, 2-3%, even if you imagine what kind of large industry we will have. So we are sitting with such a high potential in India. So now the industry is maturing, and we are going toward the maturity. So the new things are coming, and one of the things now has come up is the MSP. And under the MSP, there are particularly the multinational and large company are going into MSP. MSP is more prevalent at the moment in facility management. If you look at CBRE and JLL, they have been practicing for maybe almost over 2 decades across the Europe and America, and even in India, I have seen almost for 15 years they are practicing MSP, and this is very, very successful. They will take a building, and complete building they will manage, and under them there will be security guard, there will be gardener, there will be washers, there will be technicians, all kind of people will, so there will be at least 10 to 15 another vendors who will work under them, and they will manage. The catchword is here, the MSP, if you are large and you have a capability, because you can't become MSP unless you are large and you have a capability. Your capability is a negotiation with all the vendors, understanding the business thoroughly, understanding the pricing, and you need to give the guarantee to the customers. Because customer, when he brings an MSP, so if the customer is spending X amount in terms of outgo, and is handling so many vendors at the moment, so he will obviously customer is going to say, okay, I have got X number of vendors. Can you bring down this X number of vendors? Number, I'm spending so much of money. Can you bring down this money? So my outflows should come down, and the number of vendors should come down. My convenience should increase. My response time in terms of for their customer, because after all we are doing for their customers. So response time to their customer should improve. My ROI should improve. Now, if all these 4 or 5 knowledge and understanding, if a company is having, obviously he should go into MSP and take over that, but more and more, I think MSP is going to come into the market, which is I mean, just now you saw Flipkart has gone into MSP recently, and there are a few MSP, and most vendors are working under them. So like that is going to happen in India also. It is going to be very prevalent, but we need to accept it because as the industry will mature, new things are going to come, and we need to take it forward like this way. Thank you.
Changing times brings in change, and I think good side is that industry is maturing. These are all signs of maturity when industry strengthens, and we all need to find our value propositions, as Mani pointed out early. So if you've got your value proposition strong, then MSA and MSP should not really worry you. You should focus on treading the path of growth. I think that's a very good takeaway for all of us. With that, I think we had some more questions planned, but I had to move that out. We have got limited time. We've got some questions. I wanted to move to the first question, and that's from Rafiq Unisa. And the question is, how important is it for the business development teams to do a detailed R&D before approaching new clients of business, knowing their existing and future numbers, then start associating with them, or they should grab the opportunity coming on the way? What should be the deciding factor? Mani, can I ask you to take this up? Sorry, Somnath, you wanted to go in, or maybe you could both give your perspective.
Mani,
Sure.
With your permission. Yeah. So, see, of course, as I mentioned, that detailed R&D is required. Now it's required more because now you are communicating digitally. But there is a weapon in our hand, that today we are communicating digitally. Most of the deals we are trying to close digitally, and decisions are we are expecting that decisions would be taken. But tomorrow there is a phygital way also. Hence, you are not only discussing digitally, but also you are getting a chance to meet with the client. So definitely this R&D is required. But see, again, BD is a smart guy. If something is coming in his or her way, you're not going to stop. You're definitely going to do the business. And we have always got the beautiful incentive schemes, as Yadavji explained. So that both the modes are there, but of course there is always a benefit of doing R&D on the client. That's very important. Thanks.
Manu, you want to give your 2 cents on the same?
Yeah, I just want to add, I think, and picking up from where Somnath mentioned about the hunter thing, I think that's very important in BD, and the hunters are one who actually, while they jump into the jungle, but they do a lot of homework. They know which path the tiger will travel, which path you're likely to find that. Whatever the animal you're hunting, about it's typical. Similarly, it's very critical to do that. In fact, I always believe there are 2 things you should always be aware when you're going to the client. One is, who are the influencers and decision makers? We typically tend to focus on the decision makers, not on the influencers. We know there's an HR head, a sales head, or a marketing head, but we don't know who are the influencers. It could be an area sales manager, or we focus on procurement, HR, or sales top guy. We forget to know the influences. It's important. And second is, always have a bottom-up view. What is the bottom problem the organization is facing? That you only know because most of our jobs are typically the last mile or the first mile. That is what is outsourced typically. The first mile resource or out mile, or maybe a desk job, which is like an MIS or something like that. I'm thinking in the non-IT domain. IT domain also typically you will have the frontline jobs only. So that is where the pain point lies, and that only insight you can get when you know in the field what's happening. And I think these are two things which I can share from my experience.
Very nice. I think your point about influencers is absolutely bang on, and most of us focus on decision makers. We spend probably, I think, at least I'm just putting some percentage to it. I think 70-80% of our time really goes in mapping the decision makers, but I think we don't spend as much time on influencers, which is where the actual decision gets made, because the top of the guy usually would always rely on someone to help that person take a decision. Very important. The next question is from Visham Thapa. What are the important capabilities that the client looks for in a staffing company? Yadavji, would you like to take that, please?
Who has asked this?
Visham Thapa.
Yeah, so good afternoon, Visham. It's a very good question. I'm not sure about your company, but I think any company which looks for a staffing company, they look for certain capabilities, Now those capability depends upon, again, what size of that company, So let us assume that we are talking about large company. So if it is a large company in India, whether it's a multinational or Indian large company, they will look for as a first is the funding, whether the company can do the funding. Second is the resource, can they do the recruitment? And they can do the recruitment if they have a large number of recruiters in the company. And again, in the recruitment, what kind of technology they have, and what kind of reach they have. So recruitment is not only about just getting a portal and doing the recruitment. Recruitment is about how is your reach, what kind of technology you are using, whether the recruitment is now on field, on a kiosk, on a station, on near the airport. Tie up with the village and bringing the people from the village, so many things. So recruitment is another big capability which a company is looking at. Thirdly is what kind of technology you are using to do the KYC, to do the ABCD, which we call it as the attendance, billing, collection, and disbursement ABCD cycle. So that ABCD cycle, how do you manage? What is the technology you are using? What is the financial banking you are using? So this is another thing they look at. Then again, the next is the network. How many branches you have. Then your compliance. In compliance, how many ESI registration you are having. Whether you are having the PF registration, you got PF trust you are having. How good you are rated your PF trust. How you are managing the PF. How you are managing the ESI. How many labor license you have, what is the capability of your getting the labor license, because and again, the labor license getting is a nonsense and big nuisance, so how good you are in managing the various commissioner, the inspector, and getting the license on time, because if you don't bring on time, and if a notice goes to a multinational company to the director, your contract will be terminated, and then what is the process your company is following to managing their business, Now, those process, whether is mapped into technology, is it written, how your good robust process are there. So these are a few things as a capability a company looks at, and if you have chances of winning that client and getting that contracts becomes easier, and probably you will get it.
Very true. I think very difficult. And you mentioned about CLRA. Of course, that's a very tricky point for all of us. I'll move to the next question. And I think this is the last question I'm taking because we're running out of time. We have one or two more questions that I'm missing. Though we believe market is opening up, why are the customers taking longer than time to decide? I leave it to any of the three of you to answer this question with your experience, please.
See, it's a longer time. I would say the market is opening. Longer time depends upon company to company. If a company is a good decision maker, where HR and the legal have a particularly legal takes more time. My observation have been. And the moment your paper is sent to the legal department, believe me, it can't be less than 15 days, and it can go even up to 3 months. So any company which is making a contract with you with the legal recognition, it is going to take time. But if a company is not taking the legal recognition, they are taking more of what HR suggests and the line function. If the line function and HR are combined is supposed to take the decision, it will be faster. And if only HR is supposed to take the decision, it will be more faster, you know. So it all depends upon companies. So HR, line function, and legal, if three combined in there, 3 months. If legal is no more there, 2 months. If only HR is there, it could be anything between 1 week to 30 days. You know, that's the experience we are having.
Sure. So but is Yadavji, I'm just a question on the same. Do you see? I mean, I think this question was coming more to trying to understand: are there still doubts in customers' mind? Should they grow or not? Is that a trend that you're seeing by any chance? It's just like a cross question. Sorry, I'm just taking one.
Sorry, come again, Pramod.
Is there a doubt in customers' mind, according to you, to be able to go and expand? I mean, do you still see the pandemic really creating a question mark in their minds?
No. I think that doubt is over. Why the doubt is over, you know? See, look at the first lockdown. First lockdown was for about 2.5 months, you know. Second lockdown was for about 45 days to 2 months, depending upon state to state, varying state to state, you know. Now, the third lockdown, which is going to come, it will not come in a national, you know, because almost 90 crore people have been vaccinated, you know, and across the world, the people are getting vaccinated, you know. So I think somewhere now, I think as a human being, we are assured that we will not go for a national lockdown. It will go maybe state-wise, pocket-wise, it will happen, you know. And even if it happens, the worst, even if it happens, the lockdown, it could be anything 30 days to 45 days. For that 30 to 45 days, I don't think, and the people have become resilient, the system have become resilient, the technology has become resilient. So with that, the business will continue. It may continue with a 10% lower, but business will continue anything between 85 to 100%, depending upon the company and depending upon the industry. So that in mind, I think most of the company are going to recruit large number of people to increase their business, because after all, everybody is responsible to the stakeholder, to the shareholder, and ultimately we are all responsible for the finances. So because of this, I think the fear is gone, in my opinion. There is no more fear to any company.
That's heartening to hear, and I must applaud the efforts of the government across all the states that they have taken such a large exercise of vaccinating people. Those who have not yet got it done, please do that. That's a humble request from all of us at ISF. We are almost done. I think we've crossed 6 minutes of time. We have 2-3 more questions there. Do you think sort of we should continue, or Yadavji and Mani and Somnath, how do you want to take it?
I think we have done, except that I think there is one more question by Shweta. So
there is one which is there. Do you want to take that?
I think we can unmute her and she can ask over, you know, and that is the one opportunity we give to one participant. So Saurabh, you can unmute her, let her ask.
Sure, sir. There are 2 more questions. In fact, Mr. Sanjeev Srivastava and Shweta Saha.
Yeah, there's one from Sanjeev Srivastava as well. Correct. So with maybe last 5 minutes, if that's okay with Yadavji, Somnath and Mani.
Yeah, I'm okay. Okay,
great. So Saurabh, we'll let Sanjeev and Shweta ask their questions. Can you unmute Sanjeev first, and we'll then move to Shweta in sequence of the questions they've got it. Sanjeev, if you're still there, I think you're getting unmuted. You can come back and ask your question. Is he there, Saurabh, still?
Yeah, he's there. He just posted question. I'm just promoting him.
He's here. Perfect. Sanjeev.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely. We can hear you, Sanjeev.
Yeah, just wanted the advice from the panelists that how we are going to manage the government entities business, because if we are as a staffing company, want to get into the government business staffing side, how we are going to manage it, provided I'm just trying to create an idealistic situation where we have won the bid. And what is the advice of the panelists to get into the government staffing business? And what are the points to be considered while entering into this business of government staffing?
So
Somnath wants to take that. I think he's just come back in race. Please go ahead, Somnath.
yes, so Sanjeev, I would not discourage, but see, government staffing business is only run by government, is directed by government. There is not much you can do, right? So, and I have seen, this is my personal view, even the margins are very less and challenges are more. So if you already have that kind of setup, already you have that kind of, strong, connectivity with government and all, then you can always take this. But if you are starting something new as a government staffing projects and all, I will not advise you to do that much. Over to other panelists.
Sanjeev, if you are hearing me, my suggestion would be do not go for government business. I mean, today only, I just give you one example of today. Today only one proposal came to me for clearance. You know what is the proposal? There are 150 people to be outsourced. 15,000 rupee be pay to buy the tender, which is non-refundable. That money is gone. You can hardly bid maybe 4 to 5%. You can't price more than that, because the earlier the service provider was charging about 5%. So you can't go. I think he again is going to bid. So he will bid around anything between 4. So you can't bid more than 4 to 5%. The catchword is that whatever billing you make, out of that, 3% they are going to retain every month, as a security deposit. So in a 12 months, your 36% money is already with them, And all of that money which they retain in 12 months, next year in the first quarter, they are going to give you 75% of that, provided all the compliances are okay, And believe me, all the compliances can never be okay, cannot be okay. So when you will sit on the table, if your 75% money is, let us say, is 10 lakh, he will say, okay, you give me 1 lakh and I'll give you 9 lakh, because these compliances are not okay. So this cannot be approved, He doesn't want to understand whether you are making 1% margin, where you are making 2% margin. He only wants to understand that 10 lakhs का 10% 1 lakh होता है. तो मैं आपका 10% में पूरा 90% आपको वापस दे रहा हूँ. So this is very unfortunate, because I mean the only department in India which I would say that which has no accountability is the government department. Does not have any accountability. No accountability at all, and that is very, I mean, we are all scared of that, but that is the reality. They have no accountability. I mean, your TDS exemption we go for, and we apply for TDS exemption. If it is a 1 month delay, it is a heavy toll on our cash flow. And for delay is for what? Either the guy's commissioner is a marriage, या उनको चोट लग गया है, या वो नहीं आया है, या गया है. But हमारा अगर कोई 10 दिन delay हो जाए, you will have 10 days interest and penalty, unfortunately. So for any delay, there is a penalty and interest. For any delay by the government officials, this was the only excuse, So unless and unless आप मजे हुए खिलाड़ी हो गवर्नमेंट बिजनेस में, जहां आपका रिच है टू एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लेवल, टू द मिनिस्टर लेवल, you please go into that, But I have seen many people bankrupt getting into the government business. Many people, many companies I have seen getting into the business, and I'm sure nobody else knows better than the Somnath. In the skill business, even the Pramod, in the skill business, there are many companies which got bankrupt by not getting the money even in the skill, and which is very important initiative by the government. I'm sure Somnath and Pramod knows about this.
Absolutely. I think Yadavji, I agree.
Sorry to interrupt
While
you, sir.
government has a lot of business to give, you got to be very careful. Not the right thing to say on a platform, but you got to be really worried about how you deal with government. Nevertheless, if you've got a contract which is good margins, Sanjeev, I think the key of the major point and I think what I've learned out of experience is if your margins are good, you still have room for discussion. So if you're in a niche business and there are staffing businesses and government still available, where you may have better margins, you still may have the trouble. I think we have trouble everywhere, but if the margins have still room, I think as an entrepreneur we can take the risks. But the problem is margins are very thin. I think that's what I think Yadavji also mentioned. With 4%, 3% is the outflow, which is going to reside. If there's no margin, there's no business for us. If there's margin, you still have room for discussion. That's personal thought on that, but we move to the next question. I think
I have one question, if you could allow me. So, one last question, small question.
Please, Sanjeev, no problem.
Because as far as the MSME registration is concerned, we are a MSME registered organization now. So does the government practice or preach that for MSME, we have to release the payment within 45 days? Or say because after that, because that's a standard clause in the MSME which says that the payments to the vendors should be released within 45 days, which the private players are practicing it. Does the government do that? Because before plunging into the government business, which is my personal thoughts.
Sanjeev, you are absolutely right. For MSME, the payment has to be released within the 45 days. That is true. But the catch word is, they will say that इनका compliance ठीक नहीं है. इनका PF का प्रॉब्लम है, लेबर लाइसेंस का प्रॉब्लम है, ESI का प्रॉब्लम है, ये डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं है. Then what will you say? So that is where, so unless you have some kind of lobby and you know this, there are people. I'm using the word because after all, every government organization, the largest outsourcing is done in the government organization, and there are people who are doing this. But who are doing this? It will be more who are connected with the ministers, more who are connected within the systems. They are doing the business and they are doing very fine. आप वहां PF नहीं जमा करिए, फिर भी your bill will be passed. आप ESI मत जमा करिए, still your bill will be passed. Can you imagine? There are tender which comes, जहां पर बोलते हैं zero service charges, no service charges will be paid, and the people are participating with the zero service charges. There are government companies where PF and ESI is not deposit. वो बोलते हैं मैं तो government company नहीं जमा किया, वो आपका देखने का है. So unless you have some kind of connections, you can get into that. And there are people who are getting into that. After all, the largest outsourcing is done by the government only, Sanjeev. So you need to be careful, everybody have got his own space to work on. I think if you have a space to work on the government, you should get into that, in my opinion.
Also, with my experience, you also have to worry about payment cycle. Not only because of your compliances being wrong, but certain times the fund flow is also very, very slow for their funds to come in and budgets to be there. So while they will worry about the MSME norm much later, but if their fund flow itself slows down, which definitely did happen in pandemic, the payment definitely takes a hit. So there is no, even if your statutory is absolutely okay, there are many other star marks to it, and they'll keep fighting the MSME battle later on, which I think Government of India has more cases to file than the private companies have. I think that's true for the government. Moving on, I think there's one last question. Saurav, can you unmute Shweta as we planned?
Okay, sure.
I think this will be the last. We overshot it by 16 minutes.
We have exceeded on 15 minutes more.
I think the learning is 1.5 hours minimum given, Saurav. You can't crunch a 1 hour session.
True.
Shweta can speak. Shweta, are you there? Shweta, please unmute yourself.
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Shweta, please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon to all the panelists, and thank you for this opportunity to at least ask my question here in the session. So my question is very simple, and it's a very usual concern that probably all the staffing companies probably have. Like we usually get a lot of mandates from the client, and obviously it is not possible for the delivery to give 100% delivery to on all the mandates. So, but as a staffing partner, we all it's obviously like we should be in a preferred vendor list of the client, right? So, what should be the typical scenario where to live up to the client expectation versus the mandate received from the candidate? From the client. So what should be the typical level that we should maintain? Because in business development, it is not only acquiring new business or new clients, but it is of course the recurring business from the existing clients as well. So what should be the ideal suggestion here?
Mani, you want to take it, please?
Sure. Can
Mani,
take
Somnath.
I'll take a try on this. Sweta, there's obviously nothing called ideal, for instance, in my experience. But what I can share with you, this basis, again, I'm talking basis client experiences. Whenever they give a mandate to you as a staffing partner, they obviously give a mandate after they have exhausted their own ability to source, or they don't have the time or mind share to do that work. So there are only two scenarios in which you get that. Typically is what I have seen. They want you to be better than a previous partner, first and foremost. So if they have been working with, and you're going as a new partner, and the guy who has been doing, say, 100 openings come in, and you've done 10, and that previous, and you are doing 15 or 20, I think in client's mind, it's a relative rating, you are doing better. That's something which I have heard from the bottom of the pyramid people in the client organization, which is your ASMs or sales officers, when you're talking about PSR or ISR. That's part one. Part two, I think the bigger piece which comes in the client is more than the mandate, is that screening. If you're giving candidates and out of 10 candidates, only one is getting selected or shortlisted or joining, that annoys him more than actually the numbers you have closed. And he would like to say his time is being spent on screening and your candidates, and that's a larger annoyance to them. Hence, if you're trying to give a candidate, try and make sure you have a ratio of 1:2 or 1:3. And I think that's something which will be a more important criteria in his mind than, you just put a unscreened candidates, they are going through. So these are two things which I can share versus my experience with them.
Very important point, Mani. I think the screening point is bang on. You save the time, even if you work on less requirements, but you save their time, it will take care of it. I just wanted to add one small point to the same. Sometimes, apart from screening, that's very important. Sometimes also very important for us to know what the pain point of the customer is. Let's say there are 10 requirements you get or 100, but this one is a high pain point and 90% people may not work on it because it's maybe complicated. Maybe you could attempt to do that, because if you solve the pain point, even though your number of positions that you're working on is lower, but you still make a mark in the customer's mind. So I think that could be another strategy. It backfire also, but that's for you all to understand. But that's one way you create surely an imprint if you manage to create and solve the pain point. With that, I think we come to the end of the session. I'm sorry, we have to run out of, we are overshot the time. Saurav, over to you. Thanks a ton, Saurav and Abhishek and ISF for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, my fellow panelists. It's been really wonderful trying to do a session chair and prick your brains. Thanks a ton, everyone. Thank you, members who've joined us. Over to you, Saurav.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Yadav. Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, Somnath.
I could understand the gravity of the topic. As we could see, we have a lot of questions coming in. And as we wrap up the session again, to go for next one more litigation plan in the coming weeks, we thank you all and wish you all the best. And look forward to the coming seminars again. So thanks a lot to our list of panelists for sparing your time, and apologies again for shooting out the limitation of time. So next time we'll try to ensure we should in the limited time as mentioned. Thank you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.